Welcome to the GTM Reset podcast, the audio edition of the SalesXchange live show. This podcast is for CEOs and revenue leaders who suspect the business sales growth model is broken. If your Martech stack keeps expanding, but revenue is still slow, expensive, or unpredictable, you're not alone. Each episode explores what comes after traditional go-to-market thinking and introduces a new business operating system. This episode was originally recorded as a live broadcast, so if I reference diagrams or frameworks, you can watch the full video using the link in the description. Let's begin.
In today's show, we got three main sections, and I think it's probably a fairly logical way to structure the show. I think is a good format. So first, I want to share some news stories or things that have caught my attention this past week, and then I'm going to cover some of the issues which most of us come across or have experienced when it comes to executing a strategy. So you have to just bear with me a second. I'm just going to take something off my screen because it's a distraction. So it's gone. So, and then finally, what I want to do is talk about the sequence and structure that we provide, which is exposure at scale, engagement at scale, and appointments at scale. So, first thing is I want to talk about the rise of kind of media as infrastructure, and I want to start with a news story that's pretty relevant, and it's about TBPN. So I don't know if you know about them, but they're it's called the Technology Business Programming Network. So it's a live stream podcast business on YouTube, and the company's about 18 months old, and it's interviewed quite a lot of kind of high profile technology related people like Mark Zuckerberg and Sam Altman and a range of different kind of technology CEOs. And the significance of this, I mean, the fact that what's happened, as you can read there, OpenAI have bought them. They're 18 months old, and okay, they've got a lot of people that follow them, and it's not about their advertising revenue. It's the market, it's the audience that they attract. So as like I said, it's not about the acquisition of it. It's a big deal that a company got bought, but it's the significance of what it tells us about the direction of, you could say, modern tech companies. So OpenAI clearly want to expand their footprint, their media footprint. So they recognise something really important, that media is no longer a marketing infrastructure. Media is infrastructure itself. So when a company controls attention, it controls a narrative. When it controls a narrative, it influences markets. Now, if we look at what we've been doing over the past few days, even, I mean, just tiny scale. Our video clips have generated thousands of views. You know, some people watch for a few seconds, some people watch for a minute or longer. But over time, a proportion of those people begin watching the longer content, and that's what this is about. Nobody invests up front. It's like drip, drip, drip. And that tells us something really important about the appetite for real conversation about business problems. So, I mean, if you look at these businesses here, you know, you look at HubSpot, for example. HubSpot acquired The Hustle. I don't know if you've seen it or read it, which is a newsletter media business. Mindstream, and they bought Starter Story. I think I'll go back to that. Can't actually press the wrong button there. But with HubSpot, those three businesses that they've bought has given them an audience in the region of 50 million people a month. So, I mean, I have no idea how many leads they get from that. But I've got a kind of view on marketing automation for B2B anyway, but I'll come on to that later. But nevertheless, I mean, this is really serious. And then you've got Salesforce. So let me read this quote. This is their senior VP of global brand marketing at the time. He's now at ServiceNow now. But at the time, he said, we looked at the media landscape where people are consuming content and decided the days of white papers in a business to business setting were no longer interesting to people. So they're starting from like a cookieless future, if you know about cookies and how they work and so on, but working from a cookieless future and looking at the consumer world, we reflected on that for Salesforce and asked, well, why shouldn't we be thinking about this too? I mean, the people who are watching Disney Plus and people watching ESPN and so on, and these are the same people that would watch Salesforce content, but in a business setting. So why wouldn't we follow that kind of direction? And he said, well, that's really the genesis of the idea. And then Sarah Franklin, who at the time, again, was president and CMO, said, I think she's at a company called Lattice now, which is a people performance company platform. He said, we've had to reimagine how to succeed in the new digital first world. So we reimagined our events, shifting them to all digital brand experiences and introduced new, relevant, original content. And we're not going back. And in their eyes, they were creating the future. And so, there's brands like Disney and Netflix and Peloton. And what they've done for streaming services for consumers, Salesforce Plus, which is the brand they've got, is providing an always-on business media platform that builds trusted relationships with customers and a sense of belonging for the business community. So this is really serious. So these companies are recognizing that owning attention is strategically valuable. And that brings us to kind of directly to the business problem that we want to discuss today. So you're probably thinking, well, it's all okay for them. Yeah. They're raking it in, OpenAI, Salesforce, HubSpot, all operating in the billions. So it's a bit rich for me. And that's where you'd be so wrong. Because there are two glaring issues here. Firstly, HubSpot and Salesforce are looking to increase their exposure. And simply, I say simply, but what they want to do is to keep selling what they've got, but not to larger companies. Because you and us, we know they exist. They want to attract the people at the bottom of that pyramid and keep them engaged for the long term. So as they grow and continue to use the technology and get employed or re-employed or start their own businesses, they want to make sure they keep using their kit and their software. So stay with me on this, because what I want to do, I want to kind of frame that for us in B2Bs, in how this has affected us. And it's really, you're like this, you're like this. So it comes to this type of thing. So if we go on to here, have you heard of the elephant and the rope? So this is the best analogy I can think of. So when elephants are young, so in the circus or zoo or whatever, they're tied to a small wooden stake in the ground. As a calf, they pull and pull and pull, but they can't break free. And eventually they stop trying. So years later, when that elephant weighs 5 tons or more, and it could rip the stake out of the ground, even without noticing, but it never tries. Because it learned that escape was impossible. So the rope stays, but the real constraint is now in the mind, or in its mind. And I think most B2B companies operate in exactly the same way as the elephant. So for decades, we were told you needed massive marketing budgets, armies of salespeople, agencies, campaigns, advertising. The whole complex Martech stacks, you needed all of that just to generate business. But those constraints were real once, but they aren't anymore. And today a company can reach its entire market through broadcast-style media like the others are doing, engage thousands of prospects simultaneously, and orchestrate meetings at scale. Yet most firms are still standing next to that stake. Not because the rope's strong, but because they believe it is. And what we're building with the SalesXchange operating system is simply the moment where someone walks over and just pulls the stake out of the ground. And that's critical. It's a mindset thing, and it's going, well, if we start to think differently, start to look differently, what will happen? Nothing immediately, nothing straight away. But there has to be a shift in the mindset, in our mindsets as B2B business owners, as whether it's SaaS platforms, doesn't matter. We have to think differently because the current methodology and strategies do not work, and we know they don't work. So we look at this. So looking at the structural problem in B2B sales, yeah. So if you look at what most businesses have got, and they do have a very, very large total addressable market. And if we look at the UK, for example, there's 6 million businesses with up to about 10 employees, 212 with about 10 to 50, 38,000 with about 50 to 250, and 8,000 businesses with 250 employees or more. So depending on your product or service, it's pretty realistic for a company to have a total addressable market, a TAM, in, 10,000 organisations or more. It's 10,000 potential buyers. And here's where the maths kind of starts to break down. So most companies attempt to reach that market using BDRs. So, you're doing that through outbound telephone calls. So we've all done this, and we attempt to identify people who might be interested in our products. So in reality, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like dialing for dollars, phone call after phone call after phone call, and we all know not interested, or someone might say, well, maybe. So if we look at this, I use this quite a lot because it's so relevant. Because we, as business owners, we need to know how to manage that scale, and there is a big scale out there, and the belief is that we can't do it, so we just do one at a time, or the belief is, like I said a minute ago, nothing exists that would actually assist us doing this. So we just revert back to what we've always done. So even in a well-defined market, only a small percentage of companies are looking to do something. So if we look at where we are here, if you look at this over here, so you've got your excitable prospects, your enthusiasts and your visionaries, but they're also called the early adopters and innovators. And that equates to about 16% of your market. They're the people we're all after. We're not going to sell to these people here, but we are going to sell to these people because that's how it's always been, it's never changed. So at the end of the day, there is a small group that are actively looking, and there are hundreds of reasons, and the most logical one, with those, let me just stop, with those other people, the early majority, late majority, and the laggards, the reason they're there is because they've probably already bought something. They don't need anything until they get to that point where they're not going to take anything, and then they'll become an early adopter again, or an innovator, potentially. But as we know, a lot of people know that according to this scale, the bottom line is it's 16%. So if you're looking at 16% of your total addressable market, and if you say it's 10,000, 1,600 people might be eventually interested. But the challenge is finding them. I mean, they're of course they're going to be scattered across the country. They're not sitting there at their desks waiting for a cold call from a BDR or a junior salesman or a junior SDR. But you could say that the kind of the typical expectation of a BDR is going to be about 300 calls a week, 60 a day. And even at that pace, the success ratio is only about 300 to 1 or worse. So 300 calls to find one person who might be interested. So then you've got this, the sales stage. If you consider what that means, that even if the BDR does reach someone who's curious about your product, their role is kind of normally limited. They're not trained to book meetings. Or no, they are trained. They are trained to book meetings, but they're not trained to educate the customer. Yeah, so you always get. It doesn't matter how you got things set up. You can still get tongue tied when you're doing this stuff. You think, oh, I've got it all licked. It's all sorted. But the bottom line is that they're there, and what this shows here, if you see this line here, that's the crossover between learning and looking and starting to buy. And BDRs want to be here. They want to try and capture that person who is right there. Odds on that, 300 or 400 to 1. There's your answer. So at the end of the day, the least experienced person in the business is given the task of initiating a conversation with a potential new customer. Fine. But in reality, that makes no sense at all. I mean, in fact, it's quite extraordinary when you think about it, because they're not salespeople. They're just on the phone. So then we've got this whole thing about the sales multiplication problem, because the traditional model assumes that you make calls, find someone interested, book an appointment, sort out discovery, discussion, demonstration, proposal, sale. And at every stage it shrinks. Those numbers get smaller and smaller because we know it's always a numbers game. It's always been a numbers game. But when the total addressable market is measured in thousands or tens of thousands, trying to identify these buyers one at a time with a phone call is impossible. And yet, this model has remained pretty much unchanged since the 1950s. Telesales cold calls replaced door knocking, and gatekeepers replaced reception desks. But structurally, yeah, the system's the same. It's not changed. So you could say that technology's made it worse. You know. So most companies try to fix the problem with technology, and now you've got marketing automation. You've got account-based marketing, data enrichment platforms, reverse IP lookup, intent data platforms. If you look at that, you've got all that timeline from top left up here, starting with cold calling, 1950s, and that goes right the way down with the development of YouTube and so on, down to where we are, 2026, dealing with AI, scrape and spam. But sadly, I say sadly, I'm not sad about it at all. I'm annoyed about it, but because some companies combine consumer and corporate data from data lakes to identify mobile numbers and personal contact details of execs. We're talking like Bombara and Cognism and Candy and Lead Forensics, those types of platforms. And whilst they all kind of make you feel like you're being stalked, they're using the IP, your company IP addresses, mapping them together. And so if you've purchased something, which is where Bombara come into it, if you've purchased something, that data can be mapped against any visits that you've made anywhere else, and they go, we know that this company, this person has been on our website. Phone them up. And so we're kind of in a bit of a darker territory there, which I've never liked, ever. So businesses manipulating kind of large quantities of personal data just to get a salesperson in front of a prospect. But the reality is technology didn't fix the problem, it made it worse. So, if you look at the original, call it the original, I suppose, the original sales process, it was simple, wasn't it? It was simple. Back in the day, the founders, you start a business, selling was no problem, just get amongst it, get out there. The founder tells a story. They meet customers directly. They explain the problem. They explain the solution. The deal happens. And over time, the business grows. So you need more salespeople. Then the BDRs, then the pre-sales team, and then the marketing teams. And gradually, something quite significant happens. The original story that got the business there in the first place starts to become diluted. So you look at that, you think, well, what we need to do now, we need to potentially look at investment. And so they've forced down the investment route because they believe that once the investment arrives, marketing budgets, I just need to change something. I just need to drop down some. I'm just looking at the levels, the audio levels, and they're popping up into the red, and I just want to just drop it down a second. And I think yes, that's better. It's just a little bit this. So you're at a position where you've got more and more expense, your costs are increasing, and you think that the way to move this forward is to actually get investment so that you can do more marketing. So the investment arrives, and statistics say up to 50% of that investment capital goes on marketing and technology. So now the organisation has marketing automation platforms or more of it, paid ads, demand gen, lead scoring, attribution models. So you think, well, should be happy days, yeah? And then you realise, so what are we doing? So the annual recurring revenue full-time equivalent per employee stagnates. Profitability becomes harder to achieve to the point where the numbers that were supposed to scale kind of stop working. And we've seen it everywhere. Then the blame game starts. Marketing says, not our fault, salespeople can't sell. Sales say, it's not down to us, leads are crap, they're no good. And marketing shows all the analytics dashboards saying, well, we're doing everything right, look at this. And still, that revenue engine that you thought existed keeps struggling. So, you kind of got to look at this and think, well, what's going on here? But what happened was it was pretty simple. Selling used to be people telling a story to people. Then the industry tried to industrialise the process, and sales was broken down. Marketing generates the leads, BDRs book the meetings, pre-sales run the dems, and sales are supposed to get the paperwork signed, or something along those lines. So, in effect, the industry attempted to remove the human story from selling, and they commoditized it. So people began hoping that technology would do the work while the company just sat there and collected the money. But you and I know business buyers do not behave like consumers. They don't buy on impulse. They buy from people. People they know, like, and trust. Yeah? So that's what we all want. So, whilst the tech companies are adding different media companies to their own lineup, the objective is pretty clear. To sell, you need visibility. And no amount of BDRs in a team can achieve that kind of type of level of exposure. So it's only possible through some form of broadcast. Yeah? And that's what we've got coming up next. So, really, you look at this. We have an infrastructure, and basically, instead of trying to locate buyers one phone call at a time, we've built an operating system that changes the odds, and it focuses on visibility across the entire total addressable market So if decision makers can't find you, they can't buy from you. And visibility requires repetition, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But that's what we'll be talking about. So therefore, we want to look at this. This is what's been going on. Repetition's got to be handled intelligently, and social platforms do allow users, and we know this, to hide repetitive banner adverts, which means businesses must create a variety within their own repetition framework. So the market's got to see you often enough to become familiar with you, to get to know, like, and trust you, but the content's got to evolve so prospects don't get advertising fatigue. And that's why broadcasting becomes so powerful. And the thing with this shows the transition and the changes between what was happening, back in 2018-19. It was all about outbound. And it's changed. You've got this line, it's come down, got this intersection, kind of lockdown-ish around about that time, to now where it's education-based. So it's a matter of adapting to how people are behaving. And those people are you and me. We know exactly what we like. And the thing about live shows, like I said before, live shows are very different from the kind of polished marketing videos, because in a live show you can, you can make mistakes, and you can, if you have other people that you're having a conversation with, those conversations evolve and the ideas can be explored in. You can only describe it as real time. And there's authenticity. And it is that authenticity that builds the trust. So over time, people begin to recognise individuals behind the company. They understand how they think, how they react and talk. And when a business problem occurs with the people that you're talking to and who your audience are, because they've heard you talk about the problems they are experiencing, they'll go, maybe we're getting back in touch with them. And that's what this is not complicated. It's just it's aligning what you do to what they want. They being us. This is the kicker. And so we've seen it so many times before. I've seen it just everywhere, that you and I buy in a certain way. We always have. Self-serve, self-educate, stay anonymous, don't want anyone knowing about me. And that's it. Yet when it comes to the way that marketing people behave, it's completely different. Completely different. It's like, go for the jugular, sell, get them to fill out a form. We don't do that. But marketing say that that's how everybody buys. I mean, how's that working out for you? So we've now got this other thing. We've got to look at discovery, and this whole process of engaging with people. It's not quick. So the stages are month one. There's discovery, right? Prospect starts your prospect, starts to see something different. They observe only, look at some PDFs, scan some sections, read some exec summaries. Might have a look at the website once or twice, maybe. Then there's curiosity. They consume a bit more content, watching, I don't know, part of a live stream even. Going back to the website, maybe checking out your profile. Then there's the internal comparison. Some people start comparing what you're saying with their own organisation. They ask themselves questions like, why is this happening? What's going on, and so on. And then month 4, as I say month 4, it could be month 10. It could be month 10. You still haven't spoken to them. It could be month 10. Because it's the silent shortlisting. It's not about you. It's not about your company. It's about the direction of thinking they now agree with, and they're starting to find out who's got the same mindset as them. They still won't contact you. Not yet. And then you've got stage 5. Stage 5, not month 5, stage 5. This is where this internal trigger kicks off. Something happens. Could be people, business, finance, I don't know. But something happens inside their business that forces that business to do something. We go back to here, which is the sales stage. Yeah, that's what's going on. That's what's happening. They've had their silent period, however long that is. They're now at the sales stages, and that's when. And it's at this stage, this kind of first contact stage, when they contact you and say, "Do you know what? I've been watching and reading XYZ and so on and so on. I'd like to have a chat with someone." And that's when everything changes. And that's why we're pretty clear about the technology curve, because we're all in it. We either do or we don't. If you're listening this far down, yeah, great. You've self-segmented. That's what this is about. You've already self-segmented. You're in that 16%, whether you like it or not. Yeah. So instead of attempting to find these innovators and early adopters individually, broadcasting allows them to self-identify. They watch, they engage. Yeah, they begin with a conversation, with that kind of conversation. And now you've got to look at the economics. If it takes 300 calls to find one person who might be interested, then if you wanted to find 10 interested people in a week, you'd need 3,000 calls. And at that productivity level of a BDR, you need 10 BDRs. 10 BDRs, 50 grand a piece, £500,000 a year. Just to get 10 interested organisations each week. And even then, that process is slow and properly inefficient. But this isn't about saving a bit of money here and there. You will by doing what we're recommending, but it's about finally implementing an infrastructure that achieves consistent visibility to your total addressable market, that maintains repetition and drives those interested parties to your live show, which is in addition to your open access website and your downloadable content and anything else that can ensure that consistency of exposure and engagement. And if you look at this, and this is how you do it. This is how you reach 10,000 prospects all at once. And that's what brings us to the operating system. And I think that at the end of the day, you're looking at this whole infrastructure that's been built out because there is a problem. But our new business operating system does something fundamentally different. It replaces the isolated cold calls, that fragmented marketing campaigns, that disconnected sales activity, with a coordinated visibility engine that your entire total addressable market sees, and and they see it via a narrative that relates to social posts, emails, banners, all of which look to educate and promote your live shows. So the innovators, like I said before, the innovators and early adopters self-select. And conversations begin with people that already understand the story, as you're kind of getting to understand this now. And suddenly, I say suddenly, the economics of new business begins to make sense again. We go back to this. First, because you need to know how, I'm saying this is amazing. So I need to explain it to you. You've got to email your total addressable market. That's a starting point. It's no big deal. We know it's no big deal. So email 10,000 people. no issue. Those that 16%, they'll be up for maintaining it. Some won't. And if you haven't got a 10,000 name database, about time you got one. Costs next to nothing. Okay. So we have a structure that sends out, and we talk. This is all done at scale. Okay. So then you've got the banners. In parallel, you set up a banner campaign on LinkedIn to the same matched audience as your emails. So now you've got email and banner visibility. And then you've got multiple social posts on LinkedIn or any other platform, whether it's Facebook, X, Instagram, but we use LinkedIn. And then this is the difference. This is what this is about. This is a constructed graphic and post. So these are generated. And I say generated. They're constructed inside our platform. So what I've just explained is SX Reach, which is the umbrella for the email, banner and social. And all of those float into what we call SX Connect. So the elephant in the room, right? Everybody, it doesn't matter what anybody says, it's irrelevant. We know it is. And this is a really important part. Nobody cares. Because if you're looking at this, you want appointments. You don't care what marketing does, you don't care who does what. The only thing that matters is that appointment. Because we know it's the only way revenue starts making its way towards you. So we have a structure here. It's a multi-page discovery approach. So everyone, we know everyone has to go through discovery, yeah. With all new prospects. So we've got a multi-page form, and they fill out our discovery documentation. And the reason behind it saves a massive amount of time. So because it's all online, it's just a series of ticks. It's visible up front, so that when you look or someone looks on the website, they can see the button, click on it, look at all the questions in advance, download a PDF in advance even, and give it to another member of staff to get them to complete it before the form is actually filled out. So once they've completed the form, they book a meeting. I mean, everyone's done that before. Book a meeting. And that's where the operating system starts processing the data and so on. So it does the research that a salesperson would normally do and delivers it as a report to the salesperson, prepares the proposal, prepares the slide deck, does a cost comparison, and it tells the salesperson when it's ready. And so every single one of them are well prepared before the meeting. You just have to think about that for a minute, right? You're broadcasting potentially to what? Tens, hundreds, thousands. And no matter how many people watch you and want to buy from you, this system books them in, does all the grunt work, and delivers the prepared documentation to your salespeople the same day as the appointment is actually made, so no one gets behind. I mean, you could say you just got to make sure your installation process can keep up with the demand. And you'll probably agree. I mean, it's never really installation or fulfillment problem. It's all the ones, they're the ones who can't work unless sales actually sell. So you kind of need to understand the perspective that you've got a total addressable market in the thousands, and to communicate with them, you need an infrastructure that can both generate the content at scale and provide the telemetry to actually understand what's going on. Because without that, you can't. You're in the dark. So that's what kind of brings us on to the actual OS. Because the point is, if you understand there's this massive market, and it's because of that massive market that they need to see you. People talk about stuff going viral. No, it's not going to go viral. It's going to happen through consistent visibility, and it will gradually happen. Which is why we said there were those 6 stages that could take up to 6 months, could take longer. Who knows? But with this particular screen, if you look at this, we've got a process where first you upload 3 text files, a call to action PDF, if you've got one, and a couple of image files. It gets generated, processed on there, and you confirm what it's going to do, and then how you want it to work, and then you distribute it. So you generate these assets 30 at a time, one for each day of the week, and you can have up to 20 posts, which means up to 20 posts per day for 30 days. Just think about that. 20 posts per day for a month is 600, call it 30 days a month, is 600 posts. LinkedIn allow you to have 20 posts as long as they are different. And that is what we provide. This methodology provides that. Every single one of them are different. There's a thing called checksum. So that's how it works. So that's 600 posts, up to 600 posts prepared in advance, all processed and uploaded. I love this. It'll take you about an hour. And it's like, the more efficient you are at, because you've got to prepare some stuff in advance. But what I said, you've got some text files, ChatGPT, process them. So you've got text files, you've got a banner, you had those 3. You don't change anything. The process changes the text, the middle layer text, and because every single title is different, it changes the size of the checksum for the image. I'll just go back and I'll just show you what I mean, because this is really, really important. Because if you put the same post up every day, 20 times a day, you wouldn't be able to, because LinkedIn would say you're spamming. But if you look at this, I'll take myself out of the picture for a second. If you look at this, a banner layer, which is you can see me on there, banner layer, text layer, and a base call to action layer. There are 3 graphics layered, but the middle graphic is generated automatically. So that's how it works. It's great, because it's what everybody has needed. Because if you don't exploit repetition, your marketing efforts are no better than a BDR. Call a day, might find someone, maybe. Asking your team, oh, would someone please share this on it? Come on, we're way past that now. So that's this whole kind of process that we've got. This is the ops screen. So all of that data, all that information. So you have to imagine you've got 600 posts going out every month on repeat. You've got emails going out, not every day, but regular emails going out. You've got banner adverts. And what you need to know, you want to know how they are landing, which boils down to your impressions, engagements, and clicks, and downloads, and visits, and watch time for live streams, and watch time for videos, and watch time for shorts. And what you need is you need your own analytics. The best. Because without that information, you can't manage. And that's what this is all about. I'm not interested in marketing. I'm only interested in revenue generation. And there are a raft of activities that have to happen. So those activities happen, which lead to impressions, engagements, and so on, and appointments, and demonstration presentations and so on. The numbers get smaller and smaller and smaller because we know it's a numbers game. But the critical thing is, and this is, I love this. This is the best screen. You've got, where are we here? So we start at the top. You've got social, your social posts, your emails, your banners, and your live stream activity. All of that results in appointments and proposals that are generated. And then you have proposals that are generated, I'm sure that's the right way around. Where's my glasses? Yeah, you've got meetings that have meetings booked, and then you've got generated and sent. And the reason they're generated and sent is that something may change within the meeting, which is why you have to have that flexibility of editing it. They might not have got round to sending it out yet. You're not going to get every deal, are you? Nobody is. But that feeds into the revenue, your pipeline. So, I mean, there had to come a time that something like this was going to be developed. And so really, so in a way, it's like, where'd you go next? Where'd you go next after this? Well, you can download the Revenue Reset series, which is 3 PDFs, which will help you process what I've said today. And the link for that, the link for that's in the description. Yeah, and this is and the next part is really important. The next part's really important because it is our, you could say, foundational recommendation. Because if you want to change where you're heading, and that tends to be, we need to generate more revenue, guys, because that's what we've got to do. And what we're offering is not simply about installing a bit of software and you hoping for the best. I mean, let's face it, that's what got us into this mess in the first place. But the course, the SalesXchange course, 20 modules, self-paced online course that would take someone a week or a month. Okay, if we look at that, the whole point of this is quite a detailed process that we've got. It's our academy. We call it, it's on our academy website. But it's two things. I'll come on to this second in a minute. The first thing is that there is an introductory module, an introductory lesson. It's about 40 minutes, I think. But it's worth looking. It's worth watching. Because if you don't understand what the problem is, you know, the one is accepting there is a problem. The second part of accepting a problem is looking at what the alternatives are. And if you understand and recognise that the marketing industry in B2B has been saying the same thing for 20 years, it's not good. And it's not going to change overnight. Unless you have a different catalyst, something that's going to trigger a change. And that can only come through understanding and discussion. And that's why I did the course, because you have to understand all the different things that are required that bring everything together. And then part and parcel of that is, because it's online, you know, it means that as CEO, I'm making an assumption you're the CEO. And so yourself and one other person, you could say a VP of sales, you both go and do the course. Note, CEO and VP of sales. Once you're done, once you completed it, it's going to mean you can bounce ideas off each other. And you can also decide who else in the business should do the course and when they should do the course. But the course is critical. It's a precursor to implementing the full operating system. And on that subject, I think you should visit the website, learn as much as you can about the operating system, because is it a big jump? The big jump is the realization of what's been going wrong. I think that's the big jump. It's not an operation. Systems are systems. And then, of course, once you may not want to do the course first. You might want to speak to me straight away, which is fine. And you set up a meeting, and if you go to our platform online and book a meeting, you'll see the whole system in motion, right the way through to the proposal document and so on. And that's, even now you're part of the demonstration, because this is what we advocate, is for you to do your own live shows, a couple of people sitting and having a chat, and enabling your prospects to listen in. It couldn't be easier. It couldn't be easier. So a closing thought, really. So when someone like a CRO or even VP of sales says, we can get a few BDRs and they can do our prospecting for us, and you know that your total addressable market is thousands of companies, maybe you should pause now, because the maths, they don't work. But, big but, if you were to change the model and broadcast to the entire market and tell your story consistently and allow interested buyers to self-identify, finally, the odds begin to move back in your favour, because you will have systemized engagement, not automated outbound, or worse, you keep trying to get demand gen, lead gen, pay-per-click ads to work amongst the thousands of other people. And it's like hoping to win the lottery. Hopefully they'll see our ad on the page, and hopefully it matches the exact thing they're looking for, the word for word. But do not forget, neither you nor I will give out our details on a form, because we don't want BDRs calling us. And that's why B2B marketing has never worked properly, and why HubSpot are paying out millions to get connected with people in a different way. So, something to think about. So that's it from me for this week. Join me next week for more news and more revealing insights on B2B new business, and more information about using this new business operating system. That's it. Bye for now.
You have been listening to the GTM Reset podcast, the audio edition of the SalesXchange live show. If this episode reflects what you are seeing in your own business, the next step is to explore the model properly. Use the links in the description to watch the full video version, work through the foundational documents, and request a private strategy call if you want to see how this would apply inside your organization. Thanks for listening.